Welcome to Ngasebuhlanti conversation. Another conversation. It's another day. We're grateful to be alive. We've got another moment to have an engagement. A conversation about man, from a boy child to abantu abadala. Amakehle, the old man. We really appreciate every moment to come and sit and have a conversation, sharing some views. Looking forward to getting your views as well, your opinions on some matters that we're raising. Yeah, you're more than welcomed. My name is Utando Lwethu Kamafu Ndinguhlongwane Masubusangweni. Ndingumtshana wamatenza man, ndingumtshana wothezi Fondini. Ndingumzukulwana woRhenqwa, oGcwanini, oSibewu, ndingumzukulwana woNtsaba. Welcome to another conversation. Today, the conversation we're looking at, as Apha Ngasebuhlanti conversation, we're looking at a very interesting conversation. We're still in the month of August. We're closing the month of August in South Africa. Of course, we know that the month of August, we celebrate Omama, we celebrate Amanina, we celebrate Nzalabantu for the role that they've played. Of course, historically, we know that it was the role they played in the struggle for liberation and freedom. But I pelele on the apple because Omama, they still play a huge role on when it comes to day. So we're still celebrating Omama. And Ngasebuhlanti conversation, we thought let's take another moment again to reflect, man, on the great role, on the role that is played by women in raising great men, the role that is played by women in supporting and ensuring that in our society we've got great men that are able to contribute positively and make a huge difference. And I remember I thought to myself, let me just reflect, man, on some few things that I learned. I'm one of those people that have been blessed to be raised by great women. From my grandmother, my mother, you've got Dodabao. I was surrounded by great women. Of course, as we know the history of our country, we had to go by sevenza good, so we're raised by Omama. So I thought today, let me just reflect on some few things that I learned from Umakulu, Umagwanini, as well as Umama, Umatenza, as well as Makazi, every now and then, because they were. Yeah, it was mostly the three of them around us. Then we'll interact with Abu Antique and all of that. But I think even before I looked at those things, I remember there's something that I encountered. I think it was last year. I was in one of the socials, and I saw a very interesting conversation there. It was a conversation when I looked at the profile, it was some young man, I think probably born in the late 90s or in the early 2000s. And it was a conversation about the stage and the phase, the initiation of Waluga, Xhosa, and in other nations. And this young man is asking something, Dogbana, oh mama bafuna ndoni, this is something yamadoda and all of that. Makondo baifunayo here and all of that. And I thought to myself, oh Lord, this young man needs to be guided to understand something, Dogbana. When it comes to issues of men, Omama plays a huge role in who we have become or who men have become. You can check historically, you can do your history, go and check and go as far back as you can go. And as they were talking about this issue initiation, it reminded me of the first time, I think I was 6 or 7, early 90s, 1991, somewhere there. The first time I was able to, as far as I can remember, the moment when I saw lento kuthiwa mhlambi kuyelukwa ubhutbanibani utatubanibani ubhutbanibani uyeluka and all of that, I observed something that was very interesting at the time as a young man, because I remember I think 2 or 3 days before ubhutbanibani lo ndingazumbiza ngegama, where I grew up, abekanti uyahamba. So they were able to build iboma. I don't know what will you call it in English, iboma, but it is that hut that the initiates will stay in. So that I went by Ogaula and all of that. They were able to bring Inansiga, Baogaula, whatever amahlahla bawazisa, and then they were able to build the structure of iboma and all of that. And interestingly, on the following day, Omama went by babuya bethwele izithungu on their heads. They had inga, or what they call it, thatch kwenzukuza today. And I observed something very interesting, that they were the ones ababefulela the very same bomber that is going to stay these initiates. So or that were able to build a structure with the wood, the amahlahla labeyowakha and all of that, but builder, then omama were able to fulela. And this thing stayed with me. Now, when I saw these young men having this conversation and all of that, I was reminded, I think, omnye ubakhumbuza into bamamelanga kaloku bafethu, even kwa ibhoma eli lakhiwa by both otata nomama. And I'm saying, what could this mean? And I had to speculate around and look at some things that are very interesting, of course, based on observation, as you know, that I've noticed to say, can I not add, what role do they play in the young man's life, or in the boy child and all of that? Then, no mama, what role? And I realized, but both the males and the females are needed in raising great men. So if you look in this case of this initiation, or that I were able to build that structure, but mama brought some warmth with the thatch and everything. And it was a very interesting, and I'm interested to hear from many people about understand the history better than me, about understand as new better than me, Uguti. What is the reason why Boma lakiwa by both mama no dad? And I'm still convinced, Uguti, it is to acknowledge, Uguti, both mothers, or both male and female, are needed in the life of a man. In order for a man to become a better person, both males and females are needed. That's why Otatobao, they've got a role to play. That's why our sisters have got a huge role to play, and everyone else has got a huge role to play. So that is very, very important to note. And then which is the very same reason that even during that period of initiation, from there, mama will be given their slot to come and bazoyala umntwana and all of that, ngumntwana wabo as well. So as much as amadoda will play their role, no mama, they play their role. So both mothers and fathers, both male and female, are needed in raising this boy child, or in raising great men. And I was reflecting on some huge roles, man, that these 2 or 3 women played in my life, that have contributed to who I am becoming today. And every day I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm reflecting. Someone said, I said, look, Umakulu played a huge role. My mother played a huge role in doing their best, even though there were no fathers. Umalume were working from far. Circumstances that were beyond them. And I'm sure they wanted to be in the lives of Achana Babo, that are to working from far and all of that. And some of the few things that I'm just sharing and reflecting, man, and celebrating these great women. Some of the few things that we learned from them. I remember I stayed with Umakulu from the time I was young until 12 or 13, I think so. So one of the things that I learned from Indombendala Madonda, Umaidwanini, was umuntu ngabantu mntanam. Learn to value people regardless of their social standing. Doesn't matter whether they've got izinto or they don't, but learn to value them. Yabona banikeze the honor that they deserve. I remember Omakulu at the time and the other grandmothers in the village, because there were so many Omakulu neighbors and all of that. They used to do something very interesting, where they would exchange even food, where Omakulu would give us Ingwayombona to go and exchange for salt. So it's Ingwa, the bag of Inanziga Umbona, to go and exchange for salt. And I'm saying, okay, this is very interesting. They exchange food. It's sugar. It's that one and that one with their neighbors and all of that. Easy. They would share some tools and some other things that they have, easy, because they recognized each other. One of the things that I learned from these great women, it is respect. Again, regardless of your social standing, respect regardless of your age. I remember basic things like molweni. Umakulu would say, including Nomama as well, to say, you cannot pass abantu without greeting them, as if ubulele nabo nivuke endlini eyi-1. They would say, greet people. Umama was next to any other person, mama to wena. Ubhuti ngubhuti, usisi ngusisi. That's why they would even say, when you receive something, say, enkosi tata, enkosi sisi, enkosi bhuti, enkosi malume, enkosi auntie. Isimamva was important and still important. And these are things that I'm still learning even today. These are some of the values and principles that we're still applying as we grow. One of the greatest things that I learned from my family, Gengogo, is love and affection. I come from a family where umakhulu referred to us athi xa kubiza athi mntwana omntwanam. Umama kwela cala uza xa kubiza athi sana lwam, masana sana am, and all of that. And then that's the love and affection that you receive from these people. And this is the very same love and affection that we're sharing with some other people as we grow to realize. Someone says, why are you always warm and you're willing to greet people, hug people, and you even greet strangers? And I'm saying, this thing comes back from a kaya. A kaya where I come from, they will give you that hug. They will give you a kiss. And I remember the first time Wabandwana went to a kaya, so she's from a different province. Now, we went to Eastern Cape, and she's saying, Haibo, everyone in this family hugs and kisses. Yeah. Says you'll get a lot of hugs and kisses. Be ready for it. So it is those things, man, that we learn from these families, that warmth to say, regardless of what we have, or that might not be there, but you can learn to love. You can learn to embrace other people. I mean, when you embrace people, you add value to them. Someone once said something very interesting to say, even when you greet people, we see you, we recognize you. That recognition is important as we play this huge role in society. And they were raising these young men, man. I mean, Ekaya, you were a lot of boys. One girl, many boys, cousins, boys, and everything. To an extent that Glay family aglotata, Gukono Anelani, Sanele, Umzuyanda, Odwa, and all of that, because it was a family of many boys than girls. And these women were able to lay those solid foundations. Another thing that we learned from, I learned from these families, again, reflecting on this family. My mother loves meetings. Now, family meetings started very early with us. In those family meetings, there's a lot of things that we would engage on. I remember Umamon Zalayo, from even Omakulu, man, these guys were teachers. Omakulu had only standard 6, but a great teacher in a lot of things. She laid solid foundations in our lives. She made sure that we learn to honor God, we learn to honor people. I remember amaculo that she used to teach us and that solid foundation that was laid to honor God, to honor the people that God has created, to honor even imvelo, how to take care of inkomo nebokwe negusha and everything. Those are great lessons that we learn from Omakulu and all of that. So Umama would have those family meetings. I remember the first meeting, or some of the first meetings that I remember, is that I remember when I was a teenager and Umama had to have an engagement with us about to say, now that you're teenagers, there's puberty and this, and hey, this thing is uncomfortable, man. To hear Dala trying her best to talk to young men about sexuality, what to learn about sex. And I'm saying, already we're still young for these things, man. Even though, of course, in the street, we knew what is being said and all of that, but it was a bit uncomfortable. But she did her best to say, let me play my part as the mother, as Umzali or Kona here too, teach and share and hear what they say about these things, especially the boy child, knowing everything that happens in our society. And then in those meetings, they provided a platform, man, for us to be able to learn to communicate respectfully. They encourage engagement and consultation where you learn to express how you feel. Mama, I'm not feeling well today. Hindonim donam. Or umakulu. Makulu endivangathi ndinesuisu. Atabolanda ukakayo pa. There was always ukakayo nekamfari. Umakulu wayengadlali. Ngapha when we're young boys, I mean, and all of these things. But we were able to learn to express how you feel, express the pain that you feel, and knowing that you will not be judged, but you will be embraced because there is umdozauti. Come here and all of that. And that thing played a huge role because even Ebudaleni, these are the principles that we're still applying where you learn to express yourself respectfully. Even M7 you find Uguti, you have to learn to engage. Hey, might not be happy with this thing. However, let me learn to express this thing respectfully and all of that. So they encourage that thing to say, I remember Mama would say, guys, learn to consult. Engage. Let's have an opportunity to talk about things. Yeah, one of the things that these women did so well, these great women, I remember Utatu Sweleka, I'm 13 years old. I'm the firstborn Gamama, even though there were other cousins. One cousin was older than me. After Beambile, after everyone left, after the funeral, Mama called us in. We're boys. My little sister was only 4 at the time. She's 30 something now. It's been many years. It's been many years. She sits with us and say, Bandwana Bam, as you see how things are, everyone is gone now. I'm left with only Nina. Things have changed. Kukona, a lot of things that will change. My father died in December, meaning that schools had to be changed on the following year because financially things will have just changed. She sat with us, honest and transparent about everything, to say, this is how things are. Might not be able to afford 1, 2, 3, 4 because now I'm alone. I'm raising these many kids, not only Nina, unabantwana bomagas, not that about and everything that I'm playing a role toward. And it's things like those that have taught us to say, in life, it is important every now and then, man, to have those engagements to say, let's talk. It looks like there's a misunderstanding. Let's talk. Yeah, Bona. So we're reflecting on these great things that we learned from Bon. I remember Indombenda Lumate's Madoda would even be transparent about her finances. She said, Uguti, now that Utata when he's died, yes, go kwanimal GPF pumayo for each and every child. This is how much it is. This is what we're doing with it. She will show us a pay slips as a teacher to say, Bandona Mom, this is what I have. These are the things that we're paying here. She will give us the bank accounts. We had a PIN code, Mama. I still remember it. Even today, that was 20 something years, close to 30 years ago. She trusted us as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, and all of that. Even my youngest brother, Umshish, knew the PIN codes. My little sisters and everything, they knew the cards to say, you go and buy these things. These are lessons we learn from them. Accountability as well, because if you are entrusted with these responsibilities, you need to account back. You send me to go and buy 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the slips. This is how far I could go. I couldn't get this thing. And I went to be accountable for the things that you entrusted with. This accountability started very young because even Makolo would say, when we're young, before you leave up and leave, just report, where are you going? So that we know where to find you. If you happen not to come back, we know where to start. If we are Buta, where are you going? Oh, Globan. That's okay. We don't have a problem. You are a child, go and play. But be accountable. You don't leave this house without explaining or without just reporting where you're going. And interestingly, as a married man now, as Dom Dala, it's one of those things that I still apply. I remember I was talking to another guy to say, it is not a great thing for you to be called by a wife and asked to go to OP. I mean, you know where you're going. Why don't you just inform the very same person that you respect in your house, which is your wife, to say, I'm going to end up in a Chile. I think I'll come back this time. And again, if you see 30 minutes or something before the time, hey, it looks like I will not be able to make the time. You take a phone call, man. It's accountability. You don't have anyone who should be running after you. The same thing as going to work. M7, you know, would you start working at 8 or 8:30, and you know that you will not make 8:30, 30 minutes before you know that you won't make the time. Just report. Hey, Mpati, or whomever, Bus John, or whomever, hey, and the Bambegile, man, there's traffic, there's whatever, there's always reasons. Accountability, it is very important. One of the things that we learn from these great women is integrity, truth, and honesty. Be honest, even if it is uncomfortable. Be truthful in everything that you deal with. I remember beginning the time Sifika Pentec, the then Peninsula Technical, and it's now CPUT. Get apply by the students and all of that. They were applying for NSFAS. Now, as we're applying for NSFAS, everyone is making affidavits and all of that. I no longer have parents and all of that. And I'm saying to Mama, please, man, can you take, even if Mutadoba or someone who can make an affidavit for when you are employed with Department of Education? And I remember, and I will never forget what my mother said. She said to me, look, Mdanam, I will not lie. I'll be honest. I will go and make an affidavit. And she went to make an affidavit. I remember her affidavit reading it. I am employed by the Department of Education. I'm an educator. However, due to the fact that I'm a widow, I'm raising these many children and all that, I'm unable to afford the school fees. I submitted. I was in the list of the first people to receive NSFAS. And then that's a principle that I had to learn from her, to say, regardless of uncomfortable it is, learn to be honest. Honesty. I remember Eka Mama would say, Wuti, even if you break something, come and be honest about it. Come and say, Ma, something like this has happened. I mean, let's talk about it. Let's learn to be honest about it. And it's a principle that I still live by even today to say, let's learn to be honest, man. There are many other things that we can share about those things. I mean, one of them is roles and responsibilities. I mean, everyone at home who had a responsibility. I knew that Izinja, I'm cooking for dogs and making sure that the dogs have eaten is my responsibility every day. My youngest brother, Umshishi, hey, she had a struggle. He had a struggle because he had to make sure that the pigs have eaten. He had to make sure that amavili la iyakuzityela kuwo ahlanjiwe each and every day and all of that. Utami, my other cousin, he had to make sure that Peggy and everything. So even though those were our responsibilities, we're able to share the duties around, meaning that it is your responsibility for accountability. However, you can share this responsibility with someone so that we make sure that we go and play because we need to share these responsibilities. They told us all these duties and everything to say, look, you are many boys, Buffett. Unfortunately, you'll have to be a boy and a girl in this house. Must learn how to cook, must learn how to clean. I know this favorite stoop. That was my favorite. I didn't like cooking, even though I could cook. Mama used to say I'm very slow in cooking, and I used to say, no, man, I take pride in what I do. So I was not slow. I took pride. I can still cook. I can still clean. Actually, I enjoy cleaning and all of that. She knows with spring cleaning. I'm Chan, the master. There's therapy that comes with cleaning and that water and all of that. So all those responsibilities, as much as you're a boy, you're taking care of Ingomo, but again, you must learn to do some chores lapendly. No one will do them but you. And that thing is helping us to be able now to say, okay, siyavuka siyozama with the one that I'm with, the one that I'm married to. Life, it means that when we come back, it does not have to be as much as it might be a responsibility, but in terms of duties, we can share these responsibilities. And those things were taught by these great women. I mean, that work ethic, my grandmother taught us ukusenga. Because ungumendi emzini phakathezi usigege sibaqhubele ngaphandle nobandroko sibasengele outside of ubuhlanti because she had to teach us how to milk the cows and goats and everything. I mean, she taught us how to ubiya. I was taught by my grandmother. So they taught us the work ethic, be committed, be dedicated to work. And then we are becoming better people because of what they've done. One of the lessons I learned from them is contentment. Both of them, my grandmother and my mother, would say, look, Mpet, whatever that you have, be grateful to God. And this is what you have. You might not have other things. And then be grateful that you have what you have. We had food to eat, we had clothes to wear. We couldn't afford amakam. It got only land sabotage. I must say this thing publicly. When everyone was wearing the Ulster, Mjana Ulster at the time was 130 to 140. Already, what jumbo pasas kone Ulster? Why born into middle what angeke mntana mana uthengi nansi tennis eziduru kangaka. But yeah, that's why I made sure that when I started working, I buy myself those check puzzles and everything because there was that child that said, I'm trying to le Converse. Pandela by myself and all of that. But again, contentment to say, you might not have everything, you might not have the names, but just make sure that they're clean. Make sure that you match the colors. My mother can kill it. You can't be no if they don't match Zabambi. Make sure that even if you've got the Ezonas expensive, but make sure that you match the colors and they are clean. And be clean. All those things. But I think the last one, man, just to share, there's many, we can sit for hours and reflect on these things, but one of them that becomes top of my mind, especially in our country, where we've got so much violence, so much crime, GBV and whatever that you call it. One of the things that my mother said is violence is never a solution. It is possible to have engagements that are robust. It is possible to have serious disagreements with people, but violence is never a solution. I remember one of the things that she said, I think it was before I got married or something like that. She said to me, Mamela ke mntanam, regardless of whatever disagreement you might have with your wife, never ever be violent towards it, whether it's verbal or physical or not. I remember she said to me, Itindombendala to me, I'm a very strong person. So those who know much as they know, but I can mind uphuma metshatshalazeni, and if ungamniki induku uza kunike yakhe. She's a very strong-willed and a very strong woman. Uti to me, when I was younger, as strong as I was, I used to challenge your father, and sometimes I think I used to provoke him. And now that I'm reflecting, at least now I'm an old woman, I can reflect on those things. But what that man Uputlongwane did is, regardless of whatever disagreement we had, he was never violent towards me. And I remember when she said, never be violent towards a woman. It is not a solution. Naninina, find ways. Apparently, my father, when they've got their heated fellowship, he would just take a walk and say, hey, Matenza, go somewhere and come back full of loves. Matenza, and then they had that great relationship. And I guess I'm still have to learn and sit with Ntombe and say, Matenza, how did you manage to do this thing? Because my mother and my father were completely different, but they had a way to make their things work. And then I'm interested to know more. And this is but violence is never a solution. I'll never forget that. And I'm grateful that at least I'm still learning on that. Yeah, I still have some heated fellowships. Sometimes but we try to find solutions that are not violent and all of that, because we learn from these great women. Family man, you're more than allowed to share what are the lessons that you learned from these great women? Everyone was followed by a woman. Everyone has something to say about umama, umakulu, or someone. What are the things that we learn from these great women? May we just share those things? Share your views, disagree, agree. You're more than welcome. Thank you so much for taking your time to just listen to me sharing about all these things about